Village Board meeting to order, September 28th. I'd like to start by please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Hupkey.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. March.
Here.
Mr. Bowden.
Here.
Mr. Hack.
Here.
Mr. Forsythe.
Okay, before we get started, I wanted to introduce Mr. Spathis here. He's our new village administrator that we hired just a couple weeks ago. And I want to welcome Greg to the village. He comes to us with a lot of experience. He's held this position in a couple other towns larger than Peotone, so we look forward to working together.
Thank you.
Okay, you all received minutes from the September 14th meeting. Are there any approvals or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion. Second.
Moved by trustee Hupkey and second by trustee Bowden.
Mr. Hupkey.
Yes.
Mr. Bowden.
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Present.
Mr. March.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Okay, next we have accounts payable and payroll. The payroll, there's two amounts there. One is $43,767.59, and there was an addition of $3,364.80. And the general accounts payable comes to a total of $27,310.65. Any questions on any of those amounts?
I have a question on the Peotone storage, 31556. What's that for? The amount of $280.
Yeah, we have a storage locker out there for the police,
Okay.
and we pay ahead of the time.
That pays it through the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Was that the last paycheck for Mr. Gregg?
I believe it was. No.
There's a partial this payroll.
Okay.
That's it.
Any other questions?
Make a motion.
Second.
Been moved by trustee Hack, second by trustee Hupkey to pay the bills.
Mr. Hack.
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. March.
Yes.
Mr. Bowden.
Yes.
All right, next, public comment on any non-agenda items. If there is none, we'll move on to reports. Treasurer's report. Anything?
They were in the packet.
In our packets here?
Collector and the
Yep.
treasurer.
Okay. Is there any questions about those at all, trustees? Okay. Police chief, no report, right? Okay. And any engineer report?
Nothing other than what's on the agenda later.
Okay. All right, moving on, we don't have anything under old business, new business. Village Audit 2014-15 report, Marcy Colbert.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to take probably about 10 minutes of your time, so bear with me. Do you have your blue packets with you? So I'm going to be referring to those. In the packet there on page 1 is our audit report, and the village does have an unqualified report. It's a clean, what people refer to as a clean opinion, so there were no items that were not reported correctly, or you've included everything that needs to be included, other than, and it doesn't cause a qualification, but in the past you've been including the management discussion and analysis section. That did not get done this year. It was not part of the packet. So I don't know what the board's going to do going forward, but this year with the situation as it is, the management discussion and analysis was left out. So there is a paragraph on page 2 under other matters, the second paragraph there that just states that it was not included. It does not affect the opinion that we gave. We just need to let the reader know that it's not there. So,
What was
I'm
the
sorry.
history, I mean, why didn't we do it this year?
With George had always
He was the one that
completed
did it.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So, with that, we said, moving forward, we can start including it again.
Yeah.
It needs to be written by the village, and George had always taken and done that. So,
Okay.
we can provide a structure for it, but the village does need to write that. So, on page 3 is the Exhibit A is the statement of net position. It is the overall position of the village, the governmental activities. For those of you, I don't know if anybody's new, and just a reminder, governmental activities is your general fund, your motor fuel tax, and your capital projects fund. The business type activities are your water, sewer, and garbage funds. Given that, I just want to touch on a few numbers. Your total assets under the governmental activities of $6.6 million did go down slightly from last year. A lot of that is due to the payoff. You were talking about your debt earlier. You had $206,000 of debt certificates that were paid off during the year. You also paid off out of the out of the motor fuel tax fund, about $200,000 that was owed to the state on the Rafferty Road project that had been hanging there for a few years. And the
5 or
state
6.
finally, I think it was a 2009 or 10 project, and the state finally billed, so that got paid off. So that took some money out of the total assets there. Given that your liabilities in the governmental activities is also down about $400,000 because of those debt certificates and that accounts payable being paid off. Your business type activities, the assets are down about $306,000. Again, you paid off about $340,000 in bonds, and you paid off, there was some of that road project had been charged to the water and sewer funds, so there was about $53,000 that you paid off out of that fund, or those funds, on that road project. Your net position at the very bottom, the number that, a couple numbers you need to watch. The restricted monies there are funds that you collected that are restricted for certain projects. You've got motor fuel tax money in for some streets. You also had, the bond had about $197,000 left of unspent proceeds that is for streets, so those monies can only be spent for streets. Capital improvements is your capital projects fund, and then other purposes, there's a little bit of IMRF, different levies that are collected that are not spent. So the unrestricted balance is there in your governmental activities is $606,000. I just want you to remember that number, because in a few minutes, and David already alluded to it, I believe, before I got here, that number is going to change dramatically next year. But we'll talk about that in a minute. In your business type activities, you had unrestricted monies of $482,000. On the next page, page 4, it's a different layout than what you're used to seeing month to month, but this is your income and expenses for the year. It lays out the expenses on the left-hand side by activity, so you can see what it costs to run the government, the general government, public safety, etc. Then you take any charges that you receive or grants specifically for those projects, and then it shows a net expense. Your largest expenses, which is not unusual, is your public safety. It's usually the largest governmental expense, and public works. So the police, the public safety was $1.1 million that they spent over and above what they quote-unquote earned in revenues. The general revenues at the bottom of the page there, in that left-hand column at the bottom, shows how the village pays for all those services with your property taxes, sales taxes, etc. So the governmental activities, did show a positive increase of $167,000 for the year. The water fund showed a positive of $186,000. Now, the one item there in the water fund, because it's reported as a business for governmental reporting, the money that you paid, the bond of $340,000 that you paid off, does not come off of that $186,000, so you actually used a bit more in cash. It does not come off of that dollar amount. The thing that you need to watch, and I know you guys have built-in increases in your fees, your water sewer fees, your water and sewer activities are losing money, $99,000 for the water, about $168,000 for the sewer. You may need to look at expenses or look at fees there and see if you can maybe balance that out a little bit. That property tax at the bottom, that $370, is essentially to pay off your bond, and that bond does, as you were talking a little bit earlier, this year, that gets paid off. So that $370,000 is going to go away. That payment is also going to go away, but $340 of that payment is not flowing through these numbers. So again, next year to look about the same, but the following year, if things don't change, you'd be showing a little bit of a couple $100,000 of a loss there. So just to keep that in the back of your mind, like I said, you might need to look at fees, with the water and sewer. On the next page, I'm sorry, flip here. On page 7, just wanted to highlight a couple of changes in dollar amounts to the good. Your state income taxes went up about $60,000, so it's good seeing a swing there upward that has been going down for the last few years, so we did get a swing upward there. Your grants were up about $53,000 over last year. Your utility taxes were down about $18,000. That's your NICOR and ComEd. So those taxes did come down slightly. In the general fund expenses, your overall expenses were down $372,000 over last year. Excuse me, 105 of that was in public safety. So even though that's one of your larger overall expenses, it did come down from last year. And about 300 in public works, 300,000. Public works, a lot depends on the road projects that are going on and sidewalk projects, because that runs through the public works. Excuse me, on pages 12 and 13, and I know again David has talked about the police pension fund. Those are the only 2 pages in the audit that discuss the police pension fund, and I know he went over that with you, so I just wanted to point that out to you. On page 22, there is information on the long-term debt. And again, I know you were talking about that. Those bonds do get paid off with the taxes that you just collected. In December will be the final pay for those bonds. You do have the debt certificates that are still out there. And those were for your street improvements. On page 23, note 6, there is a little bit of, thank you, Donna. So I've got just something. On note 6, the restricted net positions that I was talking about earlier, there's some more information on exactly what those restrictions are. Developer fees is your large one there. And then on note 28, that's what I want to talk with you about for a couple minutes here. The verbiage is simple there. We're on note 11, we're saying there's a new accounting principle coming up, and we all go, woo-hoo, love those. It is regarding your pension funds. You have your police pension fund, but you also have your Illinois Municipal Retirement Pension Fund. So if you flip to the next page, page 29, this is where your large impact is going to come next year. Next year, you are required to implement GASB 68. It started with June 30th. Entities this year, so schools and some of the parks and various things like that had to implement this year. If this had been next year, if we rolled forward 12 months, the unfunded AAL, which is the middle column under municipal retirement and the police pension plan, it wouldn't be the exact number because that number does get calculated a little bit differently under GASB 68, but you would have been including as a liability in your governmental activities on that Exhibit A, $232,000 of liabilities for the IMRF fund and $3.7 million for the police pension fund. So instead of showing the $606,000 to the good, you would have been showing about a $3.3 million deficit, and that will hit next year. You're not the only people that this is affecting. Most governmental units are going to be going into a negative position on their net position. So just wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming. So next year when I come, you're not shooting the messenger. You can, but it's a new accounting policies. It's so that the public can see what the expenses and what the liability, what that future liability truly is that needs to be funded. So the rest of the audit is more detail, budget to actual numbers, etc. You see those each month. There's not really anything unexpected that we did that you would need to know about. You should have had a letter to governance about what the adjustments in that we did make. All of them were normal adjustments that happen each year. So if I can answer any questions, if anybody has any, I will. If not, I'd like to thank Marcy and Donna and everyone for helping us with the audit and giving us the information we need.
Good question.
Yes?
How's the motor fuel fund figure, the tax generated?
How is it, the motor fuel tax generated?
How's it figured? Is that by population or the amount of fuel?
It's population from the gasoline tax. So, yeah, they determine your population as a percent of the state.
So it doesn't
And then
matter
that-
how much gas people buy in your town, anything like that, right?
I don't
It's the
believe
whole
so,
state
it's just.
total.
Right, right. And then that, you don't spend until they let you know that they've approved your project.
The debt certificates, you listed them out to 2020, is that how far out they go, or is that just?
Let me see, I believe so, yes, at
That was the
105.
600,000 we borrowed for the streets project for 3
Right.
years.
Right, so yes, so 2020 is the last year that those will be paid down by March 31st of 2020.
After running all these numbers,
Mhm.
what do you see that's nasty and what do you see that's really good?
It's good to see the upward swing on the taxes. The police pension scares me. I mean, just funding that down the road, and that's, like I said, that's gonna be the big change next year.
You see that though in every small village?
We're seeing it in all of our governmental. I was just telling David with the schools, we do 7 schools. All of them are cash basis, so they only have to disclose that number. If you were cash basis, you wouldn't actually put it on your financial statements, but the disclosure would be there. The schools, from what I've seen, we're talking anywhere from 2 million to about 5 million for each school, and then the state's portion is about 25 times that. So I don't know what Peotone is, but some of the local schools are having to show a $2 million liability, and the state's liability just for that school is 50 million. And I think that's what GASB was trying to show people, is those liabilities have been unfunded, and what is the cost of doing, providing those pensions and that. Yeah, numbers are huge on that, and you're gonna, I think, it's just starting. Like I said, June 30th was the first set of people that need to be reporting that, so over the next year, you're going to be seeing some large numbers, and I think it's going to start getting people to talk, hopefully, on how, what are we gonna do with those. You've got, David was talking about the tax levy, and, how is that going to fund going down the road? It's a large number, but it doesn't all come at once, but it's still a large number that needs to be paid. Otherwise, I don't really see anything. I mean, the village runs smoothly. It's one of my favorite, or one of my staff's favorite places to come, one of mine too, but one of my staff's favorite places to come because we know we can get answers, we know controls are in place and all of that, so it's a good place to bring some new staff to train because we can show them what is done right versus some of our stuff that is not done right that we need to worry about. So I don't see a lot here that would concern me, is that other than that looming pension liability. And the IMRF one is, you know, $250,000, that's not peanuts, but it's small compared to that police pension, so.
On that pension stuff, looking ahead, what's the state going to force us to do immediately?
Don't know.
So that hasn't been written into the statutes, it just changed?
I don't know about this is accounting principles, the GASB 68 is accounting, reporting, that accounting out in DC, they can't tell the state what to do. They can just tell us as accountants and auditors how we need to report it.
Okay. So even though we're gonna carry this gigantic liability, there's no statutes that are gonna say you have to start funding it and have a plan or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, the state may do something
But
going down the road.
to date, there's nothing.
To date, there's nothing, because like I said, that doesn't, you know, this GASB 68 affects all 50 states. So there are some states, I'm sure, that are well-funded, and they're gonna be picking up assets, you know, on the books instead of liabilities. I actually have one small village that's going to be able to do that. But it's a very small village, and they've been pre-funding some. So they're gonna get to pick up an asset of, you know, about $20,000 is all. It's not huge, but they'll get to pick up an asset. But most places, it's gonna be that liability, and I think, like I said, I think it was a way of getting some numbers out there so people start talking, but they can tell me how I have to report it to you, but they can't tell anybody how to get it funded.
Okay.
So, okay? Anyone else?
Looking at the way these numbers run, though, they seem to go up exponentially, and you can talk about different avenues of funding it, but in reality, there's not enough money for all these people to fund this, is there?
Not that I'm seeing, but like I said, it is a long-term liability. It's just like if you were borrowing on your house, but it's finally getting people, like I said, to look at it and say, okay, we have a $3.7 million liability, what are we going to do? Instead of, you know, you put your tax levy in and everybody's contributing some of their own money to it, and the number just sits over there in a footnote that nobody reads. You know, we laugh, we say you read it to go to sleep. Well, now it's actually going to be in your face. And, you know, the public's going to start seeing those numbers. And I'm sure the newspapers are going to start picking up on those numbers and reporting things. So, like I said, I think it was more of a way to force discussion and to pick up the true liability that's there that everybody has been ignoring. So, we shall see.
So these liabilities have existed for a long time. It's just
They've existed for a long time. Yeah, you could go back 20 years and see that same IMRF footnote and see that same little disclosure, and it's there. And the police, since you picked up the police pension in 08, 07, you know, that number's been there in the disclosures. But like I said, it's in narrative and people don't read it, and it's just been there. So now they're, like I said, lifting it out of that disclosure and putting it on the face so people start seeing it. And, you know, actuaries know it's there, the banks know it's there. It's the public, I think, that is, you know, they know it's some number but don't really know what it is. Well, now it's a way to define that number and start dealing with it. Like I said, I don't know how the state of Illinois is going to deal with it. If they owe $50 million for one school district, there's 800 and some school districts in the state, and the one that I know they owe $50 million on is not a big one, so. Yeah.
Do we have a bond rating as a village?
I'm sure you do, I don't know what it is.
We'd have to find that out.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have gotten a bond without one.
Right.
Does any of this unfunded liability affect the bond rating?
I don't know what the bonding agencies are going to do. I know it's affected the state of Illinois, and I know it's affected Kankakee County. So I would assume it's going to start affecting your bond rating, but to what extent, I don't know. like I said, they've known it's there. I think it's more of how you're going to try to handle it and what you're doing, and if it continues to rise or if it goes down, they'll start looking at histories there, although they know the history on these things, so. And the bonding companies know that that liability is there. I imagine it will affect it some, but how much, I don't know.
Any other questions?
Questions?
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you for having us.
Does that get approved? It just says discussion item. Does that get approved next time, or?
Does the audit, you can accept it?
The audit, and we're in the public record that you heard it and accepted.
Is that the motion?
Yeah, you do it by resolution.
Yeah. Will you do that next time or now?
I believe you can do it now, you heard the audit. You have the paperwork in front of you, I think you can do it.
It's actually only supposed to be a discussion item if it's not on for an action item, though. Am I not right?
Yes.
Okay. Make it an action item now.
Yeah. To accept the audit. Okay. Next item on the agenda, accept resignation letter from Christopher Forsythe as village trustee. It's a letter dated September 14th, 2015. Dear citizens of Peotone, fellow trustees and village staff, I am proud to have served the village of Peotone for the last 6 years as village trustee, and it is with both gratitude and regret that I must resign from this position. It is in the best interest of my family that I concentrate my time and energy at home and on the needs and activities of my children. Sincerely, Christopher Forsythe. And we need a motion to accept.
Before we motion, I do want to publicly thank Chris for his 6 years of service, the time that he put in. So, I'll make the motion.
I also want to thank Chris for his service also. Second.
Okay. It's been moved by trustee Hack, seconded by trustee Hupkey. To accept the resignation letter,
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Bowden?
Yes.
Mr. March?
Yes. Okay. Next is the request for a reduction of letter of credit. Do you want
Sure.
to review that?
O'Donnell Construction, who's the developer for Ashburton Estates, had a letter of credit of just under $50,000 for the last couple of years, and based on the work that's been done in the subdivision and the development, they're asking for a reduction. The only remaining things that are left in the subdivision would be the sidewalk on the vacant lots. So we've estimated the value of that sidewalk to be $25,000. So we are recommending a reduction of letter of credit to $25,000.
And essentially, those sidewalks get put in when they construct the house.
When the house goes up, yeah.
When you say all the other infrastructures and all the streetlights and everything else.
Yeah, because everything that was on the previous letter was listed, and those items were complete. We checked that. Public Works checked that.
Any other questions? Not, we need a motion to accept that request for reduction of the letter of credit.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. Moved by trustee Hupkey, second by trustee Jones.
Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. March?
Yes.
Mr. Hack? Mr. Bowden?
Yes.
Okay, next ordinance enacting and adopting supplement 2015 S-33 to the Code of Ordinances for the Village of Peotone. And this will be ordinance 15-15.
Motion.
Could I ask a question? What is this? I'm sorry.
That packet?
Yep.
All right. The code book?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the replacement pages based on the ordinances that you have passed. Quarterly, I send them off to American Legal, and they put them in the form that fits in the book.
Okay.
with the sections and stuff. So when the supplement comes back to us, then you need to adopt this ordinance so that we can put those pages in that book,
Okay.
okay? And your book is still coming. I'm still waiting
That's
on
okay.
it to be
No,
returned.
So we haven't written any new ordinances or anything, it's just a housekeeping thing?
Every time we pass an ordinance, it gets sent to the
Yeah.
codifier.
Okay.
So that's all of the ordinances that we've passed.
We've
It says
passed.
on the, not the replacement page, the next page down, it tells you what ordinances, one more page. It
Yep,
tells
right
you
here.
which ordinances were passed that were included in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we need a second.
Second.
Then moved by trustee Hupkey, second by trustee Bowden.
Mr. Hupkey.
Yes.
Mr. Bowden.
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. March.
Yes. All right, next, sanitary sewer manhole rehab.
Public Works Department has directed us to begin a project for sanitary sewer manhole rehabilitation. It's approximately 20 manholes. They're on the attached location map. They're mostly north of Main Street, west of the railroad, east of West Street, and just south of Sumner, and that kind of the whole, those couple blocks there. The work will include internally sealing manholes, including walls, benches, and pipes, plugging abandoned pipes, replacing a manhole frame and cover, and removal and disposal of accumulated materials in the manholes. So it's pretty much giving them watertight seals so no water will infiltrate into the sanitary system.
Troy, how many of these are still brick?
I think all of them are.
Is this basically a mortaring process?
Yeah, it's a more modern, yeah.
How do you determine what pipes no longer are supposed to be fed in there or that are no longer used?
Jim from Public Works he identified a few that he knew were no longer in use, so we're gonna plug them. I don't know how he identified them. He must have just been able to tell from over the years.
You know what the length of time of the process that may take for it to come to the board for approval or acceptance of any bids?
I believe we're planning on a bid opening of October 20th. So it would be on the next board meeting after that. I don't have a calendar out.
Okay.
The next Monday after that.
We don't have any type of an approximate cost, any idea whatsoever?
I believe the budget was around 50,000.
And can this be put off for another year, or does it have to be done this year? Or approved this year? Can this wait for another year for the 50,000?
Can the project wait for a
Yes.
year? I would assume, I guess, we'd have to ask Public Works.
Why would we want to wait if we've got a budget and have the money?
The way things are going with the budget, $50,000? Just didn't know if it had to be done, or if this was just something that we do on a
I think it's
regular basis, or
more likely
like a maintenance type thing.
more likely a maintenance. I don't think it's an emergency.
Is there like, this encompasses a small part of town. Are there others? I mean, is this like an ongoing project, this section, and move on to the next and the next and the next?
Yeah, because we did Route 50 last year. And this must be the next bad section of town that he wants to do, but
If you keep in mind that when the seals aren't good in these, and the stormwater and everything else, the infiltration, that means we have to treat extra water at the plant, which makes the bills bigger out there and puts more stress on the plant. That's something you need to keep in mind too.
So it's actually a cost-saving measure, a necessity plus a
in the long
cost-saving
run,
measure.
yes.
Actually, if we got the money, keep moving.
Is that an engineer's estimate, or is that just a budget thrown at you from the?
That's the budget, but that's what we're shooting for.
Okay, is there an engineering estimate on it?
It's not complete yet, but
Okay.
I think it's just slightly over that.
Will you still be able to do it by the end, before it gets cold?
Yeah, we should be. We're trying to get it.
Hurry along.
Yeah, exactly. We should have it advertised by next week if it's approved.
So tonight, we were just approving, moving forward with the bidding, correct?
And authorizing the engineering firm to proceed with the specifications and building process.
Okay. Is there a motion to do that?
Motion.
Second.
Been moved by trustee Hupkey, second by trustee Bowden.
We'll set the bid date today too, in this motion, of the 20th.
Sure, let me double check it.
And those questions I was asking was just for information purposes. Questions.
October 20th at 9 a.m. Bid opening.
These would probably be the oldest manholes in town, wouldn't they?
Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Hupkey.
Yes.
Mr. Bowden.
Yes.
Mr. Hack.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
And Mr. March.
Yes. Before we get to questions of press, I think I forgot to ask for public comment. Is there anybody here who has comment on non-agenda items? Did I? I thought that was at the committee of the whole.
You asked.
I did this one too? You get low. Yeah.
But you can ask again.
Yeah. We're very open-minded here. All right, questions of the press? Nothing? Any other correspondence, communications, or petitions?
Water bills will be mailed out the end of the month. Due date, Halloween.
I would like to address a letter that we had in our packets. It's concerning a traffic accident that occurred on the 17th of this month. Gentleman was attempting to cross Route 50 while stopped and proceeding eastbound. I believe that from my view that both southbound and northbound lanes were clear. When I proceeded across, I struck another car traveling southbound in 50. I believe a main factor in this collision was a blind spot at northwest corner of Corning and 50. The property on that corner has a tree and a bush obstructing the view for any southbound oncoming traffic and any improvements. Now, I spoke with the gentleman and I also spoke with the resident. I also took photographs, photos of the intersection, actually where you're supposed to stop. And if you take and bring your front bumper out only about another 1.5 feet out, and you'll see that there's not too much that's obstructing that view from southbound traffic unless you are behind the stop sign and maybe the rose bush. I also took liberty of going one intersection down the main and 50, which is much worse. Much worse. Also photos for that too. Either one. So I just, the resident there has already had dealings with issues with the village and shrubs and landscaping being disturbed, and also was not aware of the upcoming IDOT.
Land procurement?
Yeah. I also had a question for concerning this intersection for Troy. Why do we need a turning lane?
Why do we need a turning lane on?
50. Why do we need a turning lane? That's what's supposed to have been proposed. That's like 3 lanes.
Because IDOT requires it for a traffic signal. That was done in the phase 1 study. There's no way they'd allow a traffic signal without a turning lane there because the traffic warranted it based on their guidelines.
That's just crazy in my opinion. That's just absurd. I mean, you're taking these people's property for a turning lane that we really don't need. Just an opinion. I'm not saying the traffic signal, I'm saying the turning lane. That's just, and like I said, I spent about an hour and a half with this family speaking to them on Saturday. After work, I went there. And I took those photos. As you can see, if you stop and go a little bit past, which is still a safe distance, you do have a clear shot there. And she says she has in the past trimmed that rose bush down, but that would be the only thing that I could see that would hamper anything, impede anything, I'm sorry. That's it.
Anything else?
Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by trustee Jones, second by trustee Hack.
Mr. Jones?
Yep.
Mr. Hack?
Yes.
Mr. Bowden?
Yes.
Mr. Hupkey?
Yes.
And Mr. Miller?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, sir.